So hi cats and kittens, this is Lex. Welcome to the Crochet Fiberist, where I love crochet and fibering in equal measures. You can find me as Alexacom on Ravelry, but I tend to do most of my lurking on Instagram as Alexacom with a 3 instead of an E. What are we going to talk about? We have our segments where I talk about a little Fiber-Ati, and then I talk about the fibering, and then let's see. Is that it? Is that it? I was going to talk about, let's see. Sorry guys, you're just going to have to check me on my, yeah. So the Fiber-Ati and some fibering. We may talk about some other stuff. My real life normally doesn't figure prominently in this podcast, but I figure I might talk a little bit about the Ghost episode 6 that was supposed to happen and never happened. But we'll get into that later. So, Fiber-Ati, we have got, I want to give a shout out to a much, much bigger, much more prominent fiberist. She is Lolabean Yarn Company. The young lady, I'm calling her the young lady, I think we're about a year or two apart. Adela is a fiberist, a mom, a wife, a woman who is always unapologetically blunt, which is really interesting. I definitely mesh well with her. I don't think it's a persona, but I definitely mesh well with how she presents herself on Instagram. She's a fellow military brat, so I definitely sense that very intense, very direct kind of approach that I grew up with. My mother is former military as well, and you've got that very direct and very just very direct, it's loving, it's very clarifying, and it's really nice to just get somebody who says the thing out loud. I feel as though a lot of times in our society, we have a lot of people who will dance around issues, and it's refreshing, even if I don't always agree with a given position. I prefer a blunt recapitulation of your actual views. Now, I could get into a long conversation about whether people's views, whether one's views are appropriate for everybody's consumption, or whether you feel like people are worthy of that kind of honesty. But that's an entirely different story. It really is. Suffice to say, I love Lolabean Yarns, the Instagram account. She posts a lot about her beautiful little girl and her lovely family, and she's kind of really exploded as far as her company is concerned. I picked up a couple of skeins of her yak yarn. I think it was a 60-20-20. It was either that, it was a DK. So it was either that or it was like a 70-20-10. I don't know. It was some kind of configuration of yak yarn, and it was beautiful. I love her yarns. I ordered a couple other yarns that are in queue right now, and I'm super excited to get them. And I just really appreciate a BIPOCer who is unapologetically BIPOC and comfortable in her shoes. I think it's great. So, a lot of your favorite podcasts are always, particularly of the knitting and fibering variety, are always drinking something very, very luscious and delicious. And I am currently drinking Happily Ever After. Honest Kids. It's actually supposed to be for my daughter, but I don't think she'll mind if I sneak a bit of this. It's really yummy. It is just apple juice. 40 calories per pouch, and I don't believe there's any added sugar. It tastes like real apples. It really does. It's really delicious. And since I'm trying to cut back on my soda, these things that came home with me this weekend are going to have to suffice. So let's see. Is there anybody else on my Fiber-Ati list? I try to write these things a couple of days in advance, but sometimes things change. Okay, let's move on. The second Fiber-Ati is Fiber Circle Studio, and this is a kind of community gathering spot in Cutest, California, which is about, I live in the East Bay of California, so it's about, what, an hour and a half north. And it's a lovely, first of all, Cutest is just gorgeous. I'm not a huge country gal, but after almost a decade of living in and working in large cities, I really miss the small communities. And if I weren't working where I was working, and if my husband's job was a little bit more, had more options, I would be pushing to move to a small little community like Cutest. It just feels like, you know what it reminds me of? If you have read Anne of Green Gables, and yeah, Avonlea, that's what it feels like. It feels like Avonlea, and I would love to spend some time there. So anyway, the Fiber Circle Studio, I want to say about 5-6 years ago, it was a different shop, a different yarn shop, and then it closed. I remember when it closed, and then I remembered when the proprietress of what is now the Fiber Circle Studio started raising money to create this maker space. There are a bunch of weaving looms. I counted 6 or 7 spinning wheels, which is awesome. And there's also yarn, which was kind of surprising because my understanding was this was strictly a maker space. But I think the idea evolved along the way, and particularly now in the middle of COVID, I'm pretty sure having things that you can buy, a lot of Locavore products, and unique to you yarns and fibers is definitely a step in the right direction. I was after working yesterday, I hopped in the car and drove up to Cutest. I just needed a break. It'd been a really long day. I was a little bit stressed out, and so I stopped by because I'd gone on the website and I saw that they had an interesting an interesting yarn with an interesting fiber content selection. And I'll talk about that a little bit later because that yarn figures prominently in a project I'm working on. So, beautiful space. I will say that the lady in charge seemed like she was in a hurry. Apparently, there's a Wine County yarn hop that's going on this weekend, so maybe it wasn't the best time. And of course, in these COVID days, you can only have so many people in your retail space. And I think I got there before they hit you can't have any more people in, so I had to kind of quickly buy my stuff and get out, which was not optimal. I'm not going to take it personally given the current issues, but I really miss being able to sit and just luxuriate at a yarn shop. I really, really miss that. There's only a couple of yarn shops where you can do that now. You're in the Bay Area, and I don't get out a lot, and also it may not be in your best interest to be out a lot. Suffice to say, lovely spot, interesting fiber options, and once the worst of COVID is over, I really love the idea that you can buy a membership and make use of the looms and the spinning wheels, and I believe there are some spinning items that are available. So if you're making bats or something like that, you can also work on things like that. I think that that's really fascinating, and I'm glad it's survived thus far, and I really hope that the community that she's made there will continue to grow and sustain her throughout this very, very odd time. So, wow, we've gone 10 minutes about our Fiber-Ati. Was I going to talk about anything else? Nope. Let's get into the fibering. Let's talk about completion. I am wearing one of my completed objects. I'm going to stand up and show you the awesomeness of this sweater. I was going to start whistling something, but I am an awful whistler. So, I don't know how well you can see it. I will post a picture on Instagram probably sometime this week. But this is a beautiful sweater that I made called Anais. Look at this. It fits perfectly. It's a cozy, oversized, boxy sweater. I wanted one of those. I remember back in the day when the boxy came out, I wanted one so bad, but I was not going to spend the entirety of my life knitting one. I just wasn't. I am not anti-knitting. We are not an anti-knitting group here on the Crochet Fiberist, but I just was not going to spend that much time, even though the look was incredible. But I thought to myself that I think I can adapt some aspects of Tunisian crochet to create a boxy sweater. One of the things I had to take seriously is that crochet stretches differently in different directions because of the shape of the stitch. And because of that, I elected to begin this sweater side to side. So I did the front. I made space for my, so here we go. I gave myself a little bit of a curve. What is this, crew neck? I don't know. I created a little bit of shaping here, and then I ended right about here. And one of the interesting things I did, and I really like it, is this fun cable. It goes all the way down to my bracelet, almost a bracelet. Well, not really. Right here to right about here. And that cable goes all the way down. I love it. It's just a lot of fun. It kept the project from being unbearably boring because it really is just one stitch all the way down. There's some increases to accommodate for the protrusions in the front, shall we say, and there's also some shaping for the neckline. And then on the back, you're essentially doing the same thing. The only change I made was to not create the shaping for the neckline. So the neckline is higher in the back than it is in the front, which is what you want in a good sweater. And the front is like, what, 48 rows or something like that. The back is like 42 rows, something like that. The idea was that I didn't need as much fabric in the back because I don't have those protrusions and I don't have other things to account for at the moment. My favorite, there's so many things I love about this sweater. The cable is just giving me all this life. The other thing that gives me this life is the yarn. I've had a love-hate relationship with woolen yarns forever. I love spinning them. I love working with them. But I found for years that Tunisian crochet and some of these woolen yarns just don't seem to go together. And I think I was just pairing the wrong kinds of projects with that yarn, and that's why I was getting things I wasn't impressed with. This time I think there was a perfect marriage to the idea I had and the yarn I chose. And the yarn I chose for this is Harrisville Nightshades. I remember, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago when the yarn came out and everybody was blown away. This beautiful, gorgeous black cormo, and an undertone of all these different interesting colors. I've been dying for a sweater quantity of that yarn ever since, really. So this yarn has been sitting in my stash for 2 or 3 years, just being worked on, pulled out because it wasn't the right thing, and put aside. And this year it was like, I need to use this yarn. This is really great yarn. I love Cormo. It's one of my favorite fibers. It's got the softness, but it still has a really interesting grippiness, so it feels like it can last for a long time. And that's something I'm so into, so incredibly into. So yeah, the yarn I used, so the yarn was, like I said, sorry, it was the dashboard colorway, which is the medium blue color, and you can't really see it in this video, but when I take some Instagram photos, I'm definitely going to try to highlight the blue undertone, because that's what really makes this sweater. If this was just black, it'd be aight, but it wouldn't really have that oomph. The complexity of the color is really what sells it for me. Let's see. I like that this hits right before you hit my tuchus. So it's almost the perfect size sweater. And there's a lot. I think it's at least 10 inches of, what's the word? Here I am with dead air. So there's 10 inches of extra space all around. I did not want a sweater that clung to all of my imperfect pieces, and I think that makes for a more versatile sweater. I think it makes for a sweater I can wear in almost any season. I think it works for a sweater that I can wear as my body goes through whatever seasons it's going through. It's really important to me to have a piece that kind of isn't just good for this one current size I'm at on what is today? September 12th, 2020. I want to look at this 5 years from now and feel super comfortable. Now, when I finished the sleeve at the tail end on a trip back home from visiting my parents, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So it took about 5 hours just to do the sleeve, and this is about 20 rows, because the sleeve, there's a part of the sleeve that's part of the sweater proper, and then I have to pick up. And so I picked up as we were getting on the road, and I finished as we were making the light to turn to our street. It took so long, and I'm not entirely certain why, because the stitches are really easy. It doesn't take a lot of thinking. There are maybe 50 stitches on your hook at any given time. I'm really confused about why it took so long, and it is having an impact on what I determined to do with these sleeves now, because as you can see, they're a little wide. They are a little wider than I prefer, and I have not decided whether I want to pull out a couple of rows and work decreases a little more aggressively, or maybe I'll add a cuff. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I know for now I'm just going to sit and ogle the sweater. So like I said, I got this finished on a Monday evening, and then I went out with it on a Tuesday just to see how it felt on my body, and I liked it. Nobody else said anything, but it wasn't like people were looking at it like, ugh, is that some homemade thing? It just looked like a regular sweater, which for me is like the highest form of this is the highest compliment you could give me for my sweaters. And this is the first time I felt that this was a sweater that could function in the real world without comment. I love that. I think it's great. It makes me so happy. So it was great when I was wearing it out, but I knew I had to block it, and I hate blocking things because I live, like I said, I live in the Bay Area, and sometimes it takes forever for things to dry. Not this week. It has been obscenely hot. It has. So I popped this in my sink to wash. I used 2 different microfiber towels to wring out as much of the water as I could. I laid this flat, and then at the tail end of the process, I hung it up in my shower and let it dry for the rest of the way. And then when I took a look at it, and I think it got done Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, and I put it on, and I wasn't able to take it off. I love it. The yarn got even softer. It coalesced so beautifully. This yarn at first felt it was always soft, but it still had this weird stiffness, and you could see every stitch, and it felt like every stitch was its own man hanging out in the universe. But after the wash and block, it just felt like it was fabric. Everything just relaxed. And I know this is always the truth when it comes to blocking something, but I always forget it until I block something, and I'm like, oh, that's why we do this. That's why we are so, we preach this so hard, because that gives it its fabricness, its cohesiveness. And so all of that to say, I love this sweater. I've already written out the pattern, and after I get back the pattern that should be coming hopefully this week, this is probably the next big project I want to work on to get written up. It's just gorgeous. It's just amazing. All right. I was very, very proud of this, so sorry if I babbled so much. I was super thrilled to have this done, and I will probably be wearing it every day. This makes 12 sweaters that I've completed in 2020. I know everybody's been dealing with the pandemic in different ways, but every year since about 2010, I have been working on a sweater a month, primarily a Tunisian sweater, so I can understand different fiber options, different sweater types, different stitch patterns. My goal is to create Tunisian fabric that is suitable for garments. And I've been working on this for 10 years. And I think this is one of the first times I made something where I was like, this is exactly what I perceived in my head. This looks great on me. I think it could look great on other people. And I think all the elements finally came together in a perfect, seamless way. And for that, I am so, so thrilled and happy. Okay, so let's see. I think the other 2 things I made, I can show you. So I think I alluded to working on these things last week, but I can finally show you these. This, as you can see, is a beautiful purple scarf that is made in the spirit of the Empower People bandana campaign, which is about politics, encouraging people to vote. So I made this one out of some yarn, some really old yarn that's been in my stash for ages. This is Pagewood Farms Tundra in the navy colorway, but it definitely reads purple, so I think it counts. Tundra is a camel silk blend. I think it's 70% silk, 30% camel, and it's gorgeous. I think I only had 1 skein of it, so that's why this happened. I like it. It's really simple. It's really easy to make, and it's a perfect piece to wear as it's starting to get a little brisk. I don't know where you are in the country, but here we are we are slowly sinking into fall, which means the mornings are chilly, and it's nice to have a little something around your neck. I do need to weave in the ends, obviously, but there's that one. And here's a slightly longer one. It smells so good. I picked this yarn up at at the Royal Bee Yarn Company, which I love. They are super sweet people, and they have a beautiful collection of curated yarns. And so I just used a chunkier yarn. I think this is a DK. I think it's called EOS. If I can't remember, I think it's EOS. I can't really remember, but I will post that in the description link below. And yeah, this is great. It's really pretty and it's really cozy, and I think it'll be a great piece to give to some friends in my life. So that brings me to 7 skeins in my 10 skein challenge. As we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, I finished the first 10 skein campaign, and this is 7 skeins down in the second 10 skein campaign. So I'm really excited. I'm getting a lot of stuff worked on, and a lot of this stuff is stuff I can give away to people who will really appreciate it. I may make one of these shawls for my mother. Definitely going to write down the pattern. It's super simple. It was very much potato chip stitching, and yeah. So those are my finished objects for the last 2 weeks. Let's talk about what I am working on right now. Okay, so it's living in one of my fantastic Madder Root bags. I think all the bags except one that I will be that my projects are living in currently are Madder Root bags, because I don't know if I have 15, 20 of these bags, but they're all amazing. Don't you love this sheep? Isn't that the cutest thing ever? Wait, can you see the face? Can you see this glorious little sheep face? Yeah. Yeah. It's gorgeous. So, it's all black. It's got this really cool closure. When I am biking, because I do a lot of biking, and I think I mentioned this last episode, I pop this on one of the handles of my bike, and it's great for carrying all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, you should definitely look at Madder Root. I am going to leave a link for them below. I'm not sponsored by them. I just really love their yarn, their bags, and they're super, super friendly folks. All right, let me dig in and grab the current project. Is that it? Well, actually, this is a slightly different project. I haven't gotten a lot done on it, but I will show you what, if it lets me. Look at all this dead air, boys and girls. This is how a professional does it. Well, let's talk about the yarn first. So I am in a Locavore mood. I definitely love yarns that are from people I know and really support, or just like. I like their fiber, I like their personality, I like the fact that they are super kind, loving people. One of my favorite fiberists that I've met in the last couple of years is Anais of Little Skein in the Big Wool. I think this is just adorable. I think this is so lovely. So I wanted to support her during the pandemic because, of course, I did. So I noticed she had a yak blend, which is a 70-20-10 merino yak nylon, and the colorway is the colorway is Garcia Girls of the collection Phenomenal Woman. Have a look-see. This is just different tonal shades of green, and you see little bits of brown and little dots of blue. It is a gorgeous skein. So I picked up 2 skeins of this. Actually, I picked up a kit, and I really do need to sit down and look at the pattern, because maybe one day that would be fun to do. Give me a second. Need some a little bit of libations. So maybe I'll do a pattern eventually, but for me, the thing was I needed to get some of her yarns. She's super sweet, super friendly. Was it this year? This year has felt like eternal. I kid you not. this year at Stitches, she sat with my baby in her booth, which was, I can't tell you how important that was to me. I was sobbing at how awesome all of the women and the people in my life, my fiber life, were with my daughter's first Stitches experience. Yeah, it was a very special time to have. Um, Sorry, I'm getting all emotional. That was not part of the show today. I was not intending to be all emotional and stuff. Sorry, guys. Anyway, for some reason I don't have the hook in, but I want to show you the beginning of what will be a fun little shawl. It's going to be called Foggy, and it just starts with some stitches. It's starting with a V shape. I'm not going to make a sweater out of this yarn. I just want to really play with the texture. So, see that. The fluffy stuff comes from another maker that I adore. Her name is Chase. She owns the Black Squirrel yarn store, and she has a brand of yarn that she dyes. She's known for her black light yarns that that glow in black light. Exactly what it says on the tin. This is not a black light yarn, but I saw it and I was like, oh, you can always do something with a beautiful gray. So I picked this up from her. This is Jessie, her alpaca lace, which is a Surrey silk. I really am starting to fall in love with Surrey silk. I prefer it to most mohair silks. Notice I said most, not all. Like if you can get a really, really good super kid mohair, those are exceptional, but those are not the standard, even indie dyed, even from an indie dye perspective. Normally you're just getting a mohair silk, but if you can get a really high quality mohair silk, you win all the prizes. But as I said, I've always been a Surrey alpaca girl, so I saw this and I saw the colorway and I'm like, yeah, that totally did. Totally the mood, Edgar Allan Poe. So I picked up 2 skeins of that and 2 skeins of the Garcia Girls, and didn't get very far, but we'll probably have something to report next week. It feels like I started all the things after I finished the sweater, because the sweater has been on my hooks for, I want to say 2 or 3 months, because I just couldn't get the oomph to continue working on it. I don't know why. All right, let's see, is there anything else? Yes. So, like I said, I was talking about fluff and stuff, and I once again found another yarn. I was at my current near YS, which is Royal Bee Yarn Co. She's super awesome, super friendly. Kelly is just the sweetest person ever. You should definitely meet her. You should definitely take a trip to Pacifica. It's a lovely drive, and she's a lovely person, and her yarn is fantastic. Okay. Again, I am not, I don't get free goodies for that. I just really love her shop, and I love the fact, and I appreciate that she's open right now. I know that's putting her in, she's not necessarily being put in the most safe condition, though she keeps the shop really, really clean. She has spray bottles everywhere with disinfectant. Everybody's wearing a mask in there. You can only have a certain amount of people in there. Trust me, she's keeping it as safe as possible, but to be fair, opening a store in the middle of this pandemic nonsense, you can't rule out the option of something going left. So I really appreciate her, and I want to keep stores like her open because she's a phenomenal human being. That aside, so I stopped at her store a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this. Isn't that yummy? This is Barocca Artesia, and it is an alpaca mohair. I don't think there's silk. I think it's just nylon as the binder and nylon blend. and it's about 400 yards, 450 yards, and 100 grams, which you never see. It's not super expensive given the amount of yardage. It's about what, $30 for almost 450 yards. So this is a pretty good. Um, this is a good choice of yarn if you want to try something a little bit different. And then this is a merino linen cotton blend. And when I find the tag, because I pulled it out for some reason, yay, I will definitely pop the name of the yarn on the description below. So here we go. Beautiful. This is almost like robin's egg blue, just a hint of blue mixed with this. What does that make? Well, this is what it makes so far. I'm still not convinced that this should be a sweater. I think it'd be great as a wrap. And you can see I kind of stopped because I just couldn't decide if this is the way I wanted to go. Every year I make a sweater using like mohair and a sock yarn, and it's just this really simple raglan shaped sweater. Every year I make one. I call them reverbs, and they're just, it's simple. There's a couple of little elements, but otherwise it's a really easy sweater. They're good. I make one every year. They never seem to last past 1 year. I'm trying to make the same thing, and I feel like the fuzz is almost too much, and I'm curious to see what will happen after it's washed and blocked. Pretty sure it won't be this intense. The other thing is I'm curious about the efficacy, because this may be too warm for the Bay Area, which, yeah, I've got a lot of thinking to do. This may not survive. This is just in a bag that somebody gave me when Izzy was born. And since she is not in a space where where it's a good idea to lug her a lot of places, it's now carrying yarn. So there's that. All right, what else am I working on? Oh, so this is just something I was working on. It was just like cogitating. I'm not like obsessed, but every time I get a chance, I do a couple of rows of this. This is going to be probably a shawl. It's either going to be a shawl or it's going to be one of those really cozy cocoon sweaters. We'll see. Here's the back, or the beginning of it at least. I'm using one of those really cool slubby yarns with a shibui mohair tweed. So I really like it. I think once I block it, it's gonna look even more amazing. The colors are really gorgeous. The slub yarn is Lavender Loon, and I forgot what the colorway is. Let me see if I can grab that real quick. Come on, guys, help a sister out. This is annoying. Mountain Haze is the colorway. It's 438 yards for 100 grams, and it's just a slub fingering. I think these are really great. The only thing that I find for me with slub yarns is I have to keep the pattern really simple. So this is going to be a very, very simple, either a popover or a cardigan thing, but whatever it is, it's going to be extremely simple. We'll just let the yarn do all the work, but I really love it, and my favorite colors, of course. And I'm using a ChowGoo hook, a fixed circular. It is a 5.5. I love these ChowGoo fixed circulars. They're like my favorite hooks. Well, they're in the list of favorite hooks anyway. And of course, it's living in one of my really cool bags from Matterroot. I like this one. These are like my everyday bags. I have so many of these. I can't I would be embarrassed to tell you how many I bought because they're kind of investment pieces, but if you're going to be spending your life making things, and if you're a person who has multiple projects, these last forever and they're gorgeous. So, yeah. Did some work on that. Put some work on that. Let's see. Oh, is this it? Oh, right. So I told you yesterday I went to Katati, to the Fiber Circle Studio, to see what they had. Actually, I knew they had a yarn called Integrity from Integrity Alpacas, and it was I want to say 80% alpaca, 20% cotton. Fascinated by the fiber content. Should have asked more questions because I wanted to know if they cut the alpaca to more closely align with the length of the cotton, and I also wanted to know what kind of cotton they were working with. I went online to the Integrity Alpaca website to see if I could get any answers. I couldn't. I may send them an email, but for now, it's just good to know. Here is the bag it's sitting in. I love this bag. I have a bunch of the blue ones. They're my favorite, and then the black ones are my second favorite, and then the wax bottom bags are like my third favorite. But they're all my favorite. They're all great. I wish I knew how to sew like this. This is such a wonderful skill to have. All right. So this is what the yarn looks like. They're calling it what? Funky, chunky, thick and thin. And it's a pretty hefty size skein. It's 200 yards. Like I said, 80/20 in this beautiful colorway. I think it's hand painted. It is, the color lot is Funkadelic. It's very, I was going to say wabi-sabi, but I'm trying to move away from appropriating terms that I don't have a full understanding of. But definitely very thick and thin. And you can definitely see it in the project I'm working on. So, you can see from the back, here is what it looks like. I love it. It kind of looks really primary colory, very kid-like, I think, from what you're seeing on the screen, but the colors are a little bit more saturated than it appears. I'm just making a simple scarf out of it. I'm using this little double, I guess I'd call them heart baubles in the middle of this little project. And then what I like to call Tunisian column stitch. I just wanted to see what this yarn wanted to be, and it does want to be a giant squishy scarf, so that is how it's going to live its life. I loved working with the yarn. I love working with it. This was started late last night, and I think I did maybe 3 rows before I started filming, so it's going by so quickly. I like it so much. I just went online and bought the last skein of the Funkadelic. So I'll have 2 skeins to make a different kind of shawl with, and I can't wait. It's just gorgeous. This is how, like I said, this is what it looks like before. So it doesn't look as primary colored in the skein as it does in a project. I wanted to keep it simple, but I did want a little bit of whimsy, and I really like that. I think it's gorgeous. I am definitely purchasing this. Makes me really interested in what else Integrity Alpacas or Rockstar or Integrity Alpacas is selling. I may go on Fibershed, which is for NorCal, where you can find a marketplace for all of the different fibers that are grown out here. I might go on there and see if they have anything, because I think my goal now is to support it as much as it depends on me, fiber making here in NorCal for as long as we live here. I really love this. It's so exciting. I can't wait. I will probably have this done either into today or tomorrow, and that will bump up my skeins to 8 skeins. So that's probably the next thing that'll be done. And finally, this has got to be, I know I said I liked the blue bags from Matterroot, but this bag is just, it is so cool. This has a waxed bottom. Check that out in this lovely green color. We've got this kind of tartany wool fabric right here, which I am in love with. It is so autumnal inspired. And even on the inside, you've got these block of leaves, which I love. I think that's so cool. And the yarn itself is pretty autumnal as well. So let me grab that. So the yarn, let me show you the yarn because I have plenty of it. This is a yarn that I've always wanted to try, but I always wanted to be able to touch it, and I'd never seen any of this yarn in my general vicinity, and I found it relatively recently. So this is 3 Irish Girls, and this is, don't want to be crass, this is Springvale DK. I'm definitely in a DK mode right now, and it's just 100% superwash merino, and the yarn, the colorway is called Trickery, and just get into that. Does that not scream fall to you? If you don't see fall here, perhaps you'll see it in the pattern I'm messing around with. So I'd hoped to do a submission for for the Sun and Fog consortium collection. They're doing accessories for the winter, and I'd hoped to get that a submission sent in, but I'm looking at my time and I'm like, I'm not going to rush it. I still have the other pattern to work on and questions to answer, because even though I've been a tech editor for over a decade, I've been doing that for engineering and transportation and stuff. I've never had to do it for crochet. So, and because I've been crocheting since I was 7 or 8 years old, everything is so intrinsic, and like it's so much muscle memory. I have not had a chance to sit down and properly write out a pattern in ages. So my tech editor is like, you've got some work to do. So I won't be able to submit this, but this may be its own thing later on in the winter. So here's what it looks like so far. Get into this color and the pulling. Some people don't like pulling. I don't care. And some people would say the pulling will overtake the patterning, and maybe, but I loved the way this all turned out. So I just said I'm going to keep working it and see what it wants to be. I have 4 skeins of these. They're 270 yards for 100 grams. So I can do a lot with this. This can be a giant shawl to wear. This could be a sweater. This could be just any number of things. And I'm super excited to see. Right now, I think it's just going to be a V-shaped wrap, but I don't know. I love being in a position where you're working on something and you're not entirely certain what it's going to be. I just love that moment in time. So this is a long-term project, and you'll probably see it a couple more times. All right. I think that's about it. The last 2 weeks have been really, really stressful. I did something a little controversial. I know not everybody will agree with my decision, but again, as my father always, well, he says a lot of things, but one of the other things he says is, if you're not paying the bills, you really can't make determinations for other people's lives. And I like to live by that little nugget of truth. So my mother's birthday was Monday. So Friday evening after work, I took a nap. Then I loaded myself, me and my husband loaded Izzy into the car and drove 5 hours to see my mom. Now, my parents are probably the most paranoid people in the world. They are very, very careful about who they hang out with. They are keeping themselves as safe as humanly possible. I am doing the best I can, but I do go in 3 days a week. I try to load up on all the drugs, try to stay away from a lot of social interaction, though I have been tempted and have broken ranks to go to yarn shops on occasion, but that's really about it. The point was, my mother hadn't seen Isolde in a year. They'd been doing a lot of they've been doing a lot of FaceTime chats, which means my daughter has been staring at her or ignoring her while trying to watch some TV, while my mom is like, Izzy, or as she likes to call it, Soli. I thought it was very important that Izzy had a chance to see her grandparents face to face. I made the executive decision. I will live with. I'll live with that. I'm still a little uncertain if that was the right thing to do, but the point is, I did it. It was important to me. It was important to me to be with my mother. We have a very interesting relationship, and she is just the most impressive person after my father. She and my father, like, together and separately, are like the most amazing people that I've ever had the honor to know. And anything I can do to make their lives a little brighter, and it's not that I gave birth to Izzy to make their lives better or make their lives a little brighter, but just seeing how they respond to my daughter is like, it's amazing. It's beautiful. And frankly, it was really nice to get 3 days of uninterrupted 8 hours of sleep. It was a beautiful thing, man. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not. But that's what happened on my end. I tried to do an episode from my mother's kitchen table, and I didn't bring everything with me. We went to visit my parents, and frankly, I just wasn't in the mood. I just wanted to devote as much time as I could with being with my family, and so that's what I did. We will be back to our next rescheduled program, so this will be posting Sunday night, Monday morning, and we'll try to get back on schedule. Also, I'm hoping to begin swatch parties because you saw a couple of projects, and I kind of want to talk about decision making when it comes to sweaters and wraps and things like that, and Tunisian crochet. And also, once I get a clearer picture of what my tech editor wants, once we get everything written down, I actually do need to do a swatch party to go over some stitches, stitches I call rediscovered stitches, and just show you guys what I have been learning in the last 10 years. And yeah, that's my goal. That is what I am all about this week. I hope your last couple of weeks have been excellent and you've been able to cope in the healthiest and sanest ways you can. And on that happy note, fiber on.